I'm playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same. Cause that's what it takes.
All right, guys, happy Sunday. Welcome to the stream. Sorry for the late start. Corax and I have been having a great discussion amongst ourselves for the last 50 minutes. And then I just realized from George's comment, are we happening tonight? I looked up and I was like, I never hit the go live button. So,
I've done that mistake before.
Oh, man, what a week. That's what happens when you go on vacation for a week. I come back and I'm rusty. So sorry, Corax, for that.
No,
sorry to everybody
right.
that was wondering where the hell we've been. Anyways, the point of tonight's live stream is to have maybe an educational discussion about some of the ongoing lawsuits. Some of them we have court documents already filed, like MMTLP. Some of them we have pending lawsuits, like Al and Jordan's against the world, I call it. And I guess, Corax, I'm going to let you talk about this again since I wasn't live the first time.
Yeah.
As I was watching your video, which I have linked in the comments, a week or so ago, you were talking about MMTLP, and there were some wording in that court case in one of the files. Let me pull it up here so folks can see what I was looking at. That when I saw it, I was like, this reminds me of some of the things that I'm reading in Al and Jordan's lawsuit, where, you know, I might want them to be correct on a lot of this stuff, but I'm worried that they're only presenting speculative or conclusory assertions and not really meeting the preponderance of the evidence. And we've seen that some of these defendants are dismissing or making motions to dismiss in MMTLP based on that very concern, right? So can you kind of give us a brief update of what's going on with MMTLP specific to that little thread of thinking there, and tie that into any other case that you want to, including the Al and Jordan lawsuit?
Yeah. To debate, give a basic overview heading into this particular one that we're talking about. There have been 4 federal cases, and then this one, which was a state level New York case, that was the four federal ones were basically your standard fraud cases. They filed charges against FINRA and their brokers over. All 4 of those were dismissed, and in the cases of the brokers, the claims were sent to arbitration. A key thing to remember when reading your terms of service when you're signing up for a broker, when you click that I agree, all that's legally binding. And that's what happened with those 4 federal cases. Is on the charges against the brokers, they were sent to arbitration because in the terms of service, all claims are by contract sent to arbitration. And so that those all 4 got canceled out. And then this one is the one in New York State. It is a pre-action discovery case. Every state has a version of this law. Basically, what it is if I am trying to sue someone and I don't know exactly who the person is, say someone on Twitter is slandering me, all I have is the username. Well, I can file a pre-action motion in California because that's where Twitter's headquarters is. That's where they operate out of. Or I could have filed it in Delaware because it'd be Nevada now that Musk owns it, and ask for a pre-action discovery motion. And basically what that is I'm going to Twitter. I have this username. I have an actionable cause, which we'll get into here in a second. And I can demand that can get a court order that Twitter has to give me identifying information as to that username. So identifying information could be they access Twitter via their phone. So I get their phone number and I can then go to like AT&T and whatever and be like, who's this person? Where's their address that's on record with you? Things like that. So then I can then take the lawsuit to whatever jurisdiction I need to and actually sue the person. The other thing that you would use a pre-action discovery for is, say, there's a car wreck and the gas station's security camera captures the car wreck. Well, if I need that information for a case, I can go to the gas station owner with a pre-action discovery and say, look, because you have like one hard drive and you're going to obviously write over that information because you're constantly recording the footage, I can use this pre-action discovery to get the footage before it's destroyed. Because, trial processes are long. Before we even get to discovery, the footage might not exist anymore. So this is before you go to trial, if you have actionable claims, you can then request the court to give you information before you go to trial, so long as you have an actionable.
Do you recall in the MMTLP, the one that I have on the screen here, what they were alleging that was that didn't have the required evidence?
Yeah, they were alleging fraud. There were a couple other charges. The big one was fraud based on misrepresentations and things like that, based on releases that FINRA had made. And
they were accusing FINRA of fraud.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, in this pre-action discovery, they're not accusing FINRA of fraud. They're accusing, I believe, the pre-action discovery is asking FINRA to give them information so that they know which brokers or which individuals did the alleged missing fraud.
So they're asking FINRA for information to figure out who is the perpetrator of the fraud, and they can't even get past that step because FINRA is saying you haven't even presented evidence, you're just making allegations, and we want to dismiss it. Am I reading that right?
The stage that we're at right now is the trial court has already accepted FINRA's argument that there is not a viable claim here. This is upon appeal to the New York Supreme Court for appeal. Now, when I say New York Supreme Court, New York structure is a little weird. We won't get too much into that, but they consider their trial courts county Supreme Courts, and then you appeal to an appellate court that is some sub jurisdiction of the state Supreme Court. It's really weird, but not really germane to our discussion. So when I say Supreme Court, they're not going all the way up to the New York Supreme Court in all bold and all caps. They're going to a appellate court of the county, air quotes, Supreme Court.
So when I was watching your video and reading through these documents that I think you linked them in your video a week or so ago, when I was reading through like stuff like what I have highlighted here, I was like, this scares me for Alan Jordan, that their lawsuit, as I'm reading it, as a unbiased, unemotional, just trying to see if we can nail somebody to the cross here, some institution that is doing something wrong. There's a lot of allegations that, in my view, are speculative and conclusory. And I'm seeing MMTLP attorneys getting smacked down on this very issue. I kind of thought it might be worth having this discussion. Like, how do we better overcome these hurdles? Because we know the attorneys for these institutions this is going to be their go-to, right?
Correct.
They're going to say, just dismiss it, judge, because this is all speculation. They've presented absolutely no evidence.
Yeah. And if you still have that tab up, I think to help people understand what the standard of review is for a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim, we went over, when we were talking amongst ourselves accidentally, the Iqbal Twombly standard, which are two different cases that give the standard. When they say something is conclusory, they're talking about evidence that, not evidence, accusations that are presented that presuppose their own correctness with no evidence, not even like the most basic evidence. Because when you file for a motion to dismiss, the court is very permissive. It's supposed to be assumed that, whatever claims are being made are assumed to be correct. But the Supreme Court of the United States held in both Iqbal and Twombly that you have to give at least some basic evidence that the court can rely on. You can't just naked make conclusions and a court be expected to assume based on their face that they are correct.
It seems really, you and I were talking about this on a space call a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if you remember me saying this is like a catch-22 for plaintiffs, right? We have all these theories that everybody's doing everything wrong,
right?
And we need evidence to prove it, but we can't even get one foot in the door in a court to get that evidence because they shut us down by saying we don't have evidence.
I agree with that on certain claims that are really hard to try and get at. I'd also point, even though I think that the case is pretty weak and has a chance of being, just outright dismissed, the Mullen case that West Christian did, they went and pulled public data from, I think it's the NASDAQ, about trading data and used that. So yes, it is a catch-22, but even weak supporting evidence is better than no evidence. If you simply just make a claim, the court's going to reject it under Twombly. But if you at least present some factual basis for the arguments you're making, remember, under a motion to dismiss, the court has to assume its factual basis, so long as you go through the effort of at least doing something that could give the court a reasonable conclusion that you're simply just not making an argument for the sake of the argument.
And I guess that is my concern. Like, as I'm reading through Alan Jordan's lawsuit, like I said, I'd love to nail any of these institutions to the cross and prove that they were doing anything illegal. But I am concerned just reading through it, like it's all of the allegations we've heard on Reddit for the last 2 years. The entire encyclopedia of them is there, but I didn't see any evidence of anything to back up those allegations. And that was just kind of like sitting in my craw. Like, I don't know how strong this case is. And then when you posted the MMTLP video and I saw they're getting smacked down by the defendants or the case
in this case. Yeah.
I was like, well, we're screwed in the Alan Jordan case because we got the exact same thing here. A bunch of allegations that everybody can get excited about and rally. Oh, this is the best lawsuit ever. It's got them on everything. But with no evidence, it's not going to go anywhere. So how do we fix that?
And I think what some of the things we were discussing are important ones. We looked at some of the allegations that you've done the legwork on, that while it doesn't support the allegations they're making, this is legwork stuff that should have been done even before there was a filing. Like we talked about the whole BDRs thing and how you went and tried to go to Banco B3 to at least try and get, the float information, what's going on here and everything. And that's stuff that Alan Jordan should have been doing.
I've been working, for the past month or so on numerous of their allegations to try and get, something that if I could find a smoking gun and hand it to them, I'll say, use this. And I'm posting it all on Twitter, even though Al blocked me. I think Jordan.
Did he delete his account on Twitter? Because I haven't seen it anymore.
I don't know. Jordan at least has not blocked me, so he can see. Yeah. I think he can see what I post, and maybe what I post will be useful. Maybe it won't.
It might be interesting because
whatever my findings are, because I'm spending a lot of time trying to be helpful here.
And maybe it will be.
It's been a month of just reaching out to people, reaching out to FINRA, reaching out to Citigroup, reaching out to Banco B3 in Brazil on numerous different allegations the BDRs, the Rule 605 allegation. There's the other allegation about that they sold unregistered securities. That one's just going to fail out the gate, because if you could, anyone could talk to your local CPA or your local securities attorney, and they're going to read through the 10Q and say, it says right here that the company is restating previous data. That's going to, you won't even get half a foot out the door on that one.
And we even went into the whole BDR thing when we were discussing amongst ourselves unintentionally, that, you know, there are actionable claims that potentially they could be leaving on the table because you said you were getting stonewalled by Banco.
I'm getting stonewalled by Banco B3. Yeah, they're not. Yeah. I've got a lot of information from them. They've provided me numerous documents, which I've linked and posted on Twitter. I've looked up the volume trading history of BDRs, which was tiny, like a few thousand shares of AMC a day. But where they're not giving me a specific answer is how many BDRs were ever created? And, you know, those are threads that Alan Jordan could pull on, I think, in a court case.
Yeah.
But you need to do the work to find out who created the BDRs. It wasn't Citi that created them. They already are on the wrong foot there. Citi didn't create the BDRs, even though that's what they allege.
And even if you couldn't get discovery against Banco B3 because it's only a Brazilian entity, you could backdoor it through Citi.
Right. You could, since Banco B3 is not answering how many BDRs did you create, you could go after Citi and say, how many shares did you have on custody and how many BDRs did Banco B3 tell you they were creating, right? But you got to know what the right questions to ask are. And they're off on the wrong foot on this lawsuit by a mile.
Yeah. Another big one that I think we were just getting into when we realized that we weren't actually live yet was the 12 CFR 1.7 thing. I was just getting into that.
Did you send me a link for that?
Yeah, I think it's the most recent one in our
All right, let me check the chat here. The Cornell EDU?
Yes. Al, while he's pulling that out, Al was basically making the accusation that Citigroup had created these bonds that are not securitized. They're basically unsecured debt. And he was arguing that that was in violation of 12 CFR 1.7.
Oh, yeah, I remember this one.
But the problem with 12 CFR 1.7 is that it's secure. It says right there in big font, securities held in satisfaction of debts previously contracted. Okay, so then what do all of those words mean? Securities is talking about equities. So this is debt previously contracted, whether it's securitized or not, in which it's the Antara deal. AMC goes to Antara and says, we'll exchange for your debt 8 shares. And these are the rules for if a bank like Citigroup was to take that deal, how they can't use it for speculative purposes. They can only hold it for a certain period of time and all the different rules with that. But Citigroup has never done that. That deal was done with Antara, but I have not heard of any evidence in which Citigroup has accepted AMC equity in exchange for debt previously contracted.
I got the impression, and I could be wrong, that where he was trying to go with this angle was that all of the bonds that were sold, $4 billion, that there's no securities being held in satisfaction of those. Now, I could be wrong because that would be a preposterous thought, a preposterous accusation. Maybe he was just talking about the Antara deal, but all of that was documented. So
yeah. And one thing that I go into in that video that I did on understanding 12 CFR 1.7 is how these bond offerings work is the reason why it showed in that SEC filing that Citigroup had contracted all these bonds is because they're AMC's primary bank.
Right.
And so what they would do is they would create the bonds and then they sell them off and they collect the fees from selling them. There's a chance that Citigroup could possibly have some of these bonds because they probably have a deal like the federal, like the U.S. Treasury does with its primary banks, where it's you are responsible for selling these, but any that you don't sell, you're responsible for warehousing them. So they pay up front and then they collect the money in fees. And that's how they get their profit from selling them on to other entities.
And typically when we're looking at bonds that these companies are selling, be it AMC or others, you have either secured bonds by the assets of the company. So you have a claim on the company and all of their assets if it goes into bankruptcy. It's not collateralized by securities, because those will essentially be worthless in a bankruptcy. It's collateralized by assets of the company.
Correct.
And then you have unsecured bonds, which are collateralized by nothing other than the good faith of the company.
And that you're higher on the capital stack than equity and preferred shareholders.
Right. So again, as I think about that, like, I don't know why he's bringing 12 CFR 1.7 even into the lawsuit. Like, no casual read that I did of that made sense to me, from Jump Street.
And I even double checked my work where I looked at 15 USC 78P to verify that when they say securities, they mean equity.
They do.
And in that law, they use the same language where they say that basically if you get into the swing trade rules, which is what that section is, they go into the same language as securities that are acquired for debts previously contracted are exempt from the swing trade rule, which we went into that when we talked about the whole Antara deal and everything and the swing trade lawsuit from that. So there's the consistent language there that you can look at. And that's another thing that you have to do, especially if you're going to be pro se and you don't have a lawyer. You need to read the laws and you need to look at what they say and compare them and the language in it and make sure that the language that you're using is correct for the argument that you're making. We talked about some of the tools that you could use to do that sort of research, like Case Text and Case Mind, which I talked about in a stream that I did with Platinum Sparkles about the Ryan Cohen Bed Bath & Beyond lawsuits, where you can use some of these tools. You can put securities held in satisfaction of debt into Case Mind, and it'll give you actual cases talking about this sort of this law. And you can see what the court has to say on these matters, just checking your work as you're going along. Like, before you file a lawsuit, there's a lot of research that goes into understanding the claims you're making them before you put pen to paper and send it to a court.
Is that Case Mine with the E on the end?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to put a link for anybody who's watching, whether you're just an armchair legal enthusiast like Corax and I are, and you like to check up on these things from time to time. He does a lot more work on it than I do. I only follow cases if they're specific to a security that I'm holding. He's doing a lot more work. So casemind.com.
And you can even narrow it by a specific court in a specific state or a specific jurisdiction. Case Text, I really like. It's the same. You just substitute the mind for text. And what I like about it is when you pull up the actual lawsuit, there's a link at the top that says download this case, and then they will shoot you an email with a PDF download, so you can have the actual PDF file and reference that anytime you want to locally. They're both really good tools.
So I'm going to keep asking this question, Corax, until you tell me the answer. How do we overcome getting dismissal motions like what's happening in MMTLP? They have a real attorney, right? MMTLP?
Yes, they have Mark Bazile.
They have a real attorney, and they're getting dismissed on speculative and accusatory. What's the word? Not accusatory.
The conclusory.
Speculative and conclusory assertions. They're getting dismissed, and they have a real attorney. How does a pro se person have a chance at knowing what to put in the documents to just not get an outright dismissal motion from the defendant?
It's sometimes, in some cases, I hate to say it, like sometimes you just need a real lawyer. In this case, it was kind of
Don't go
based on
there.
some bad
Don't do it.
facts. Based on some bad facts to begin with.
I know you're going to say you need to have a real lawyer.
but in some cases, like I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that you have to do the legwork. A court, based under the standards for a motion to dismiss, they have to assume all the facts presented are accurate on their face, but you have to go through the legwork of at least putting something in there, something that the court can, rest on. So it doesn't even have to be particularly strong, so long as it's evidence that could tie back to something. I can't remember if we said it when we were live or not, but the Mullen West Christian case, where they pulled the data from the NASDAQ and that public information. And while I still think that case is weak, it could possibly survive a motion to dismiss, simply because they said, here is all the data of all these market makers that did all these transactions that we believe are spoofing. And they can point to the court and say, this is the reliance that we're making. And the court can say, okay, they're not just making conclusions based on saying, this is what we believe because this is what they believe, circular logic stuff. No, this is what we believe because this data chart that we've interpreted says that these conclusions should be accurate.
That brings up a great point. You just made me think of something. Like, if you're going pro se up against any of these institutions, or even if you're hiring a lawyer to go up against these institutions, one of the questions you should be asking your attorney or asking yourself is, all right, I wrote up all my accusations. I wrote up all my speculation. I wrote up this great story. How am I going to survive a motion to dismiss?
Mm-hmm.
What, they're going to say, I have no evidence. How do I survive that? Because that is going to be the first blow that they try.
Yes. And even though a lot of resources will say that a motion to dismiss usually gets, shot down, it usually gets shot down because the person had some support.
Had some evidence.
Yeah.
Right.
But so long as you make some sort of effort, the court is going to be pretty generous with you on a motion to dismiss. Because remember, the standard is that if so long as you state a plausible claim for relief, and that using common sense and have some sort of support, the court is generally going to be pretty permissive with you. But you have to at least show something.
I guess the other thing, I'm just presuming here, Corax, that like Al knows a little bit about the law, probably more than I do. Mm-hmm. He probably thinks that his case has all the evidence he needs.
Yeah.
But, run it by a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
Run it by a few other people that can give you a dispassionate review. Like, I could read through his lawsuit and say things like, you're accusing Citibank of creating 3 billion BDRs when I know that Citibank didn't create them. I could tell you that right out of the gate. Banco B3 created them. Citibank was the custodian. You're accusing Citibank of fraud for creating them, which is, again, they didn't create it. And your evidence is what? A screenshot from MarketWatch showing a market cap equivalent to the U.S. markets. Which could just be a data consolidator trying to equate a foreign market to the U.S., not evidence that those BDRs actually existed.
Yeah,
and I know that
you can't get that information of what the float is in Brazil.
I've been asking for a month for the actual real evidence, and they won't give it to me. So, but I knew from day one, 2 years ago, that just because MarketWatch is reporting a market cap equivalent, that I should not take that as evidence that 3 billion BDRs existed. That's like, I guess this gets down to how you analyze things that you read, right? Mm-hmm. Either you're very, dispassionate and you look for logical reasons, or you're very conspiratorial and you assume everything is exactly the way that you need it to fit your narrative, that everything is corruption.
Yeah.
Like there's multiple possible explanations. I don't know which one's right because Banco B3 has not answered me. But maybe, instead of alienating everybody that doesn't agree with you, maybe you should befriend or interact with people and say, hey, what do you think of this case? What do you think of my allegations? If you're going pro se, maybe it could help you strengthen your case,
And
even if you don't like what we say.
I know a lot of the people that are more skeptical of these charges get a lot of heat on social media, but those are the kind of people you want.
We are nothing compared to what you're going to face.
That's what I was about to say. If you thought we were hot, wait until you get an actual lawyer starting to pick apart your claims.
Yeah.
Like
I'm trying to be helpful. I would love to see any of these institutions burn if they're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. But I'm coming at it with just a more logical approach instead of a conspiratorial, emotional approach.
And I've said this before, and I know the first time when we looked at Al's lawsuit, we thought that, maybe you could get something with like the spoofing claims or something like that if you fleshed out what you were saying. And so like, it's not like we are totally implausible to the idea that there might be some claims out there that are worth investigating. But boy, howdy, if you can't get around us, what chance do you think you have getting around a lawyer or a judge to agree with you on a motion to dismiss? So like these things that we point out are things that you should take seriously if you're planning on forming a case, because these are things that you're going to be asked eventually in court. And if you don't have answers for them before you get to court, are you ever going to have answers for them? I think we brought up while we were talking amongst ourselves, the Sorento case is kind of sort of an example of actual claims that are not conspiratorial, that may very well have merit. The Sorento bankruptcy was a situation where before Sorento Therapeutics, before it even ended up in bankruptcy court, Sorento did this sort of spin-off into certain of its assets into Silex as sort of one of those like, get the shorts thing. If we do this like spin-off and then we restrict the shares from being traded by putting it in like sort of a holding period, sort of like an insider would have a holding period for being able to trade shares, we'd be able to trap the shorts because they would have this spin out distribution that all shareholders got, but they wouldn't be able to cover. That's sort of a little irrelevant to what we're talking about here. But what happened was after the spinoff, about a month after that spinoff, Sorento went into bankruptcy. Silex didn't, but Sorento did, because they would be two distinct entities at this point. Silex, which is a California company that is incorporated in Delaware, via a P.O. box, got to have their bankruptcy in Texas, which if you're thinking that sounds sus, yeah, it's very sus. It was then found out that from other cases in Texas, that the lawyer presiding over the bankruptcy lawyer presiding over the Sorento case had a relationship, was in a relationship where she was actually living with said judge, in not only the Sorento case, but several other cases. And the judge had to recuse themselves pending an ethics violation from the circuit court that rules from above this bankruptcy court. So that was the first red flag. The second red flag is something that I did some research into, that I think that this was a Texas two-step. A Texas two-step, if you're not familiar, is a quirk of Texas bankruptcy law, because they have very permissive rules around spinoffs where, say Tony owned a company and he had a bunch of legal judgments against him. What he could do is create this spinoff organization and put all the liabilities of those legal potential legal judgments and maybe a few assets to be able to cancel out some of those claims into a shell organization and then spin it out of the company. And since all of those legal claims are in that new entity, his company can wash his hands of that and move on and get rid of those legal filings and totally screw over those people who were suing him. What I think Sorento did was the opposite, sort of an inverted version of that. They put all the good assets they wanted to keep in the spinoff, spun it out, and then Sorento went to bankruptcy, therefore screwing over the shareholders and the unsecured bondholders who are impaired currently in the Sorento bankruptcy. So there's a whole mess of daytime drama going on in that bankruptcy, where I do believe there is an actual case of fraud, at the very least, from the potential of the intimate relationship between this judge and the lawyer, if not this whole Texas two-step thing and the manufactured jurisdiction where they were venue shopping, where you manufacture a reason to be in a different jurisdiction than another in order to get favorable legal outcomes for yourself.
I've been digging into some other things that we've been talking about on space calls for the past couple weeks relative to Alan Jordan, just to see if I can help them in any way, get some meat behind the claims, because a lot of the claims seemed weak. And one of the things that I was digging into is the allegations that Citi was just outright violating SEC regulations by not filing Rule 605 reports, which they're required to do monthly, if I recall. And so I wrote to Citi, I wrote to FINRA, I looked at a lot of other entities similar to Citi that have mandatory SEC requirements to file Rule 605 reports. And I posted some helpful links on Twitter and in the community tab in my YouTube, along with a copy of this email I got back from FINRA in the past couple days. And I just want to talk about that for a second, because it again goes to what kind of legwork you need to do instead of just making an accusation that Citi is blatantly violating SEC regulations. How about you contact them? How about you contact FINRA? How about you look at other entities and
especially FINRA, because they have no reason to lie about what the filings are.
Have any other organizations stopped reporting Rule 605? And I found, yes, there is several others that are not. They're reporting, all of them, including Citi, are reporting every month. But when you open up the data file, there's no data in the case of Citi. In the others where there was no data, there's a placeholder file that said we had no covered orders in this period. So they had no orders that were under the purview of Rule 605. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not trying to answer that question. What I am saying is they are saying they don't. So that's a thread you can pull on, right, in your court case for discovery. But just to outright claim fraud because they saying they didn't file it, that is not correct. They did. Citi has been filing every month.
Yeah.
But they don't have covered orders. And FINRA wrote me back and basically said that. This was in a specific question I asked them about Citi. FINRA said the firm's reports indicate it had no covered orders under Rule 605 for this period. And that is every month since April of 2022. And they provided a couple helpful links, which I had already read these in my investigation work a couple of weeks ago, but I put them out there for you guys. If you're a nerd like me and want to dig into this stuff or help Alan Jordan, they're out on my tweet and in my community tab. But I'm just saying, making an accusation in a case without doing all this extra legwork and then figuring out what is the right thread to pull on to request discovery makes it very easy for defendants' lawyers to dismiss your claim. Citi's going to say exactly what FINRA is saying here. We didn't have any covered orders. Yeah. So you better be prepared for that, Alan Jordan.
Yeah. And
it's really that simple, but you're making an accusation without even knowing what their answer is. And you should know, as an amateur attorney, don't ask a question you don't know
the answer to. That's lawyer 101.
Right. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that. So yeah. I'm going to do some legwork before I make accusations in a case.
Yeah. And it makes, while each individual claim will be considered individually, it makes the whole of your case look weaker. If you have a bunch of unsupported claims, even the good ones are going to get much more scrutiny, because if you put 15 claims out and 13 of them don't even have basic, legwork on them, you're going to look like a clown when you get to court.
Dave Bala says, just to get this on the record, Tony supports Citigroup. If that's what you're hearing, Dave, if that's what you're hearing in our discussion of trying to be helpful about what threads to pull on to anticipate your opponent's answers, then you are beyond help. I don't support anybody. I'm trying to be helpful in pointing out the fact that making an accusation without actual evidence is going to get dismissed outright. We're seeing it already in the MMTLP case, and they have an attorney on retainer filing the fucking documents.
Yeah. If you can't even, if you are so unwilling to try and figure out what your opponent might come up with in court against you, you're kind of already lost the plot.
They haven't even done the bare minimum of research to put the proper accusations in their lawsuit, is what I'm saying. I'm spending hours of my day for weeks for the last month trying to be helpful, and then I get dipshits like Dave Bala saying I support Citi. Like, you're completely missing the point.
And I guess to something that popped up into my head while we were thinking here is when we're talking about evidence that support an allegation, they don't have to be particularly super strong. I know when I was talking with Platinum Sparkles about the Ryan Cohen case, what was used as supporting evidence that allowed for them to get past the motion to dismiss as to Ryan Cohen potentially pumping and dumping the stock was a tweet where he said, at least her cart is full, moon emoji. And because the moon emoji is generally how they went into the analysis from the judge was that you can't just look at what like something that's a symbol as what the sender thought it meant. You have to also look at it in the context from the receiver of that message. So say something like a rocket emoji, you might see that as just, a cute little thing to put on the end, but to a lot of retail investors, that means, go pump the stock. So the judge was like, because certain symbols mean certain things to certain people, you have to look at it in the context of the person receiving the message. So even if Ryan Cohen didn't intend for it to be go pump the stock, that's something that he can definitely bring up as a defense in court. I have to look at it from the permissive standard of, based on the allegations that are being made, it is plausible that it was interpreted as go pump the stock. And it is plausible that Ryan Cohen intended it to get people to go pump the stock. So that really shows the kind of level that most judges are working with, that so long as you get close, so long as you hit the target, you don't have to hit a bullseye. So long as you get the arrow on the target, most courts will be like, okay, we can at least discuss this.
If you guys, are not willing to be open-minded and try and listen to people giving you reasonable information, it's an easy block for me. I don't care about subs or whether you, make comments in my chat. I encourage questions. I encourage opposing viewpoints, but you have to be open-minded. I am a retail investor just like you.
And so am I.
But the reason that everyone is losing money is because you are listening to dipshits who make accusations in a court case with no evidence. And that is what we're talking about. How do you win? How do you not make those basic mistakes? Corax covered a week ago, again, an MMTLP case. The documents are linked in his video, where they have an attorney getting a case dismissed for making accusations without evidence. Mm-hmm. This is very basic. Like, let's get better together and stop arguing with each other. Stop thinking everybody is fucking against you.
Yeah, because the only way you get better is by being open to new information. I like if there's one thing even beyond just the financial advice that I picked up from Warren Buffett, he constantly has said that he's always reading new books. He's always taking in new information, even if it's information I disagree with. You've got to be someone who is constantly consuming and constantly changing potentially your opinion as that information is received by you, or you're going to be left behind.
I was on a call that Ramen Soups on Twitter. He was having a call and he was talking about MMTLP and BBIG, and he had a few people come up there and they were all, smacking the BBIG pumpers. But one guy came on and he's like, I heard you guys. I can't remember if the gentleman that was given his confession that he got roped into the BBIG scam. If he said this or Robin or one of the other folks said it, but I made a BBIG video in April of 2023, 8 months ago, saying that it was going to go bankrupt, and it's still up and all the comments are there. You can see all the hate I got, but it took me 2 minutes of looking at the financials to realize that this was going to end up in bankruptcy pretty quick if nothing happened, and nothing happened. So the basic message is scale your risk. You don't want to load the boat. You don't want to mortgage your house. You don't want to take all your 401k and put it in BBIG when the financials are an absolute wreck and the evidence of massive impending dilution is right there in all the filings. And stop fighting people like us that are telling you that's going to happen, and at least consider that, hey, that's a possibility. And if you still want to invest in BBIG, then you can take ownership of your choice and not blame the CEO, not blame anybody on YouTube or Twitter. But the fact that people can't even do the basic research.
I think that kind of goes to that point that a lot of these lawsuits, the reason why they're not doing the research is they're trying to push ownership of their own financial decisions onto someone else. They're searching for something that can absolve them of their blame for their own personal choices.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even in the BBIG play, but one of my viewers asked me, Tony, can you make a video just letting us know your thoughts on BBIG? So I did. It took me a couple minutes to realize this was a train wreck coming.
Yeah.
But it's because I wasn't emotionally invested in the play. I wasn't listening to people telling me it's going to the moon. And even on AMC, right? We had one set of assumptions, thoughts, beliefs in 2021 when the meme stock community was strong and the economy was strong and things were going up. But then things changed. The economy started tanking and interest rates started going up and AMC started losing money. And then it became important to start looking at the financials, because as cash is draining down, that starts mattering. Bankruptcy risk starts becoming more real. And I still see people, Corax, that say, AMC has no bankruptcy risk. What are you talking about, Tony? What are you talking about? How dare you?
It's as long as shareholder equity remains negative, there is always a bankruptcy risk.
Well, I'm looking more at working capital, right?
Well, that too, yeah.
When you have negative 1 billion working capital, bankruptcy risk is real, because you're negative 1 billion in ability to pay your bills due in the next 12 months. And so AMC needed to raise cash, and I know people hate it when I say that. But that was important to understand and not listen to the people saying that the company's fine, or Adam tweeted that they had 1 day record concessions. 1 day record concessions doesn't make a year. They're negative 1 billion on working capital.
Yeah.
So they need to raise money. It's unfortunate. It's going to hurt shareholders because there's only a couple ways to raise money: sell assets or go to the secondary market.
Yeah. And it can happen really fast too. Like the newest bankruptcy I'm following is Near Intelligence, which you can make that name the butt of many jokes, but it IPO'd via SPAC 9 months ago, and they're in bankruptcy court right now.
The good news for AMC, though, to finish my story, is they're roughly only about negative 2 to 300 million working capital now with the recent fundraising that they've done, the equity raise. So they bought themselves a little bit of breathing room.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I own AMC again right now. I've been buying in this range, and but I understand the risk because I look at the financial statements and I read the risk disclosures, and it's just really very basic rules, no matter what ticker, BBIG, MMTLP, the list goes on and on. AMC, GameStop. Read the financial statements, understand what they're meaning, read the risk disclosures. Don't just, I literally have seen people making videos saying these risk disclosures, they're just trying to scare us.
No,
These
they're reasonable.
These are fake and they're trying to scare us. No, they're trying to make sure you understand what could happen so you can't sue them. Yeah. Because if it's a risk, it could happen. So allow yourself to believe that it could happen, and then you make a better choice about how much money do you want to put into it.
Not only do you make a better choice, but you don't get strung out in so many companies. Like the biggest bar that has kept my portfolio nice and tidy is the rule of thumb that I got from one CPA that I listened to on YouTube. That's a value investor. He says, before you invest in anything, like I said, read the financials, read the 10K, not just like thumb through it. I mean, read it so you understand the company that you are investing in, because that's what you're doing. And if you don't understand the business, where its money comes from, what it's doing, like you said, the risks involved with owning this business, because that's what you're doing, then there's nothing that can help you. And you have to take ownership of the fact that you didn't do your due diligence before you invested in that company.
I saw someone post a meme on Twitter the other day, which has been echoing in my brain. I was talking about it with my wife, or maybe my son. My son's a finance and accounting major in college. And in our drive for our vacation this past week, we had hours of conversation about retail plays and, his thoughts on it. And I remember many people back in 2021 saying, don't invest money you can't afford to lose.
Yeah.
Right? You guys have all heard that. But I think people hear that and they don't actually adhere to it. Because I'm seeing the stories now of people destitute, losing their houses, no money to buy Christmas presents, behind on all their bills. Why? Because they put everything in one play. And in all of these plays, the common denominator is they are money-losing companies.
They treat it like a lotto ticket.
Yeah. You're buying a scratch-off, which you have a very low probability of winning. If you win, the reward is going to be exponential to the risk you put in, right? But the chances of winning are small. So when you see all of these memes and tweets and everybody saying, and it's been said 1 billion times over the last 2 or 3 years, don't put money in a play you can't afford to lose. You should pay attention to that. And I really feel like the people that are the most upset right now, and I feel for them, they didn't adhere to that basic tenet. They put everything in one play.
Yeah. And sometimes you just have to admit that maybe you either don't have the time or you don't have the ability or to dedicate to this, in which case, for all the bad things that have been happening with the economy right now, if you just, bought VU, the Vanguard S&P 500 at the beginning of this year, you'd be doing pretty good right now.
The bulk of my plays are blue chips, and they're all, they're up very good. Just look at the SPY. Look at the Dow. Look at the indexes. If you don't have time to read financials or the ability to understand them, invest in an index tracking fund or find some blue chips that you like that have a long history of profits and growing revenues. And you're going to be much safer in that. And I get it, guys. I'm a gambler. I'm a speculator like you. But I I've learned the hard way over 3 decades of doing this to only allocate a tiny percentage of my overall portfolio into these plays, because I just go into it saying I could lose this all.
Yeah.
And I hate losing capital.
Yeah.
So,
and or even like I did pretty good after the AMC arbitrage. I put quite a chunk into 30-year treasuries, which are now turning around now on their face value, and I'm doing pretty all right with that. I get 4% every month, and then they're also appreciating on their face value. So
very nice.
I mean, there's all sorts of different ways. You just got to understand what level of risk are you willing to tolerate, what kind of risk, not just tolerate as in your mental state, as in, being able to handle the position, but what can you, like we've been talking about, afford to tolerate? And
like for your family's financial well-being, or your own financial, right?
Yeah.
The YOLO thing got a lot of, what's the word? It became the thing to do back in 2021. YOLO, everything into one play. And that was all. I never understood that, because I'm not young.
Me neither.
I'm not young, and I don't have money to just throw away. Like, I got to think about retirement and providing for my family. So I never YOLO'd, and never will, everything into one play. If I really want to YOLO Corax, I'll buy some calls. That's about a couple, that's about the best I'll do.
Yeah.
But there ain't no damn way I'm putting all my money in one play. Even if it was Tesla or Amazon or Apple, I'm going to diversify across different sectors. I'm going to look for profitable companies, hope the market, goes up between now and when I need to take that money out. And then for fun, for my YOLO plays, that's a small percentage. So if I lose it, it literally is no big deal.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that goes back to how, unfortunately, a lot of people came into the market with all this stuff that happened in early 2021. They came in via Wall Street bets. That was the subculture there. And people, now that the market is no longer so happy with how the economy looks, they're learning some very hard lessons, some very hard realities on how things actually operate, and are having to deal with some very, very harsh realities because of that.
Yep. Well, we got off topic of the lawsuit. So or the lawsuits, and how to better strengthen allegations with evidence. We talked about BDRs. We talked about MMTLP. And then we talked about the BDRs. We talked about Rule 605. The other one that I just wanted to touch on for a second was this allegation that the AMC was selling ape before it was even a sparkle in Adam Aaron's eye back in 2020.
Before it was even in Citigroup's
eye.
Right.
Right. That's what I mean. Before anybody had even thought of having a preferred unit, there are allegations and videos and tweets and lawsuits being filed saying that because of the way that they are reading a 10Q, that is evidence that they were selling unregistered securities. And again, guys, you might not like me, you might not like to hear this, but I implore you, go talk to your neighborhood CPA, your neighborhood attorney, anyone who has any experience in accounting or securities law, and show them the 10Q and find the sentence in there where it says, we will be restating previous data to reflect the fact that ape now exists.
And they even give you the pertinent rules and law as to why they have to do this.
Right. This argument in this lawsuit that Alan Jordan have, and the videos that people are swearing up and down that they're right, that ape was being sold years ago, will fall apart in 2 seconds if you talk to someone you trust who is unbiased and unemotional and non-conspiratorial. It is basic accounting. It's properly disclosed and explained to you in the 10Q that they were restating previous data based on the creation of ape, so that everything makes sense. And the only reason I bring that up is because, again, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe Al. Go talk to someone you trust.
Yeah.
I would bet money with any of you. There's zero chance I will be incorrect on this. And these guys will have that claim thrown out in court in a couple seconds. But the reason it came up is, AMC Corax recently completed the at the money offering, and then on the 15th they filed a second 8K that they had sold another 4.7 million shares in exchange for 36 million of debt.
Yeah.
In a filing that was titled "Sale of Unregistered Shares." Sale of unregistered shares. And oh boy, that set all the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, because
off
instead
again.
of doing an offering to the market, they were shares that were
because it had the word unregistered in it. Oh, that confirms what I've been telling you.
Right. They weren't previously allocated to an ATM, but they had these shares available that they could have sold. So instead of selling them to the market, they sold them to a creditor in exchange for debt.
I just want to implore people, and I'm going to try and get a securities attorney on here because I know
that would be awesome.
Everyone hates me and no one wants to believe me. I'm just giving you, I'm on the side of the bad guys. No, guys, you can find this information. Just be open to looking. That's all I'm saying. Unregistered securities, there are numerous exemptions, half a dozen, where a company can sell unregistered securities to accredited investors, or in this case, using the 3A9 exemption to exchange debt for unregistered securities. It's a SEC rule. Go look it up. Go look up the 3A9 exemption. Start educating yourself, and you'll stop listening to these fools who are filling your head full of fibs because they don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah. If you do get that securities lawyer, give me a ring. I would definitely want to be nosing my way into that, because that sounds like a great educational opportunity.
The guy that I reached out to, I don't know if he'll be willing. He's a YouTuber, but his target audience is corporations. Like, let me help you make sure you're properly doing your filings and that you're properly registering securities, or if they're unregistered, make sure don't say that you're registered with the SEC. You have an exemption, which is perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal to trade unregistered shares as long as you fall under the exemption criteria. And one of the exemptions, the 3A9, says that if you're a debtor and you're exchanging debt for shares and no cash changed hands, then that is a valid and legal exemption. Now, what I don't know, because I don't know every aspect of SEC law, right? I'm learning every day like you guys, but I am willing, and I have the time, because I'm just sitting around here smoking cigars and drinking beer.
Yeah, I know. I've got a hookah and I just finished a glass of whiskey.
I have a lot of time to read. And so one thing that I don't know, and that this is really my last remaining question, we do know that when you buy or you receive unregistered shares, there is a process. Basically, you can't sell them into the secondary market, right? They're not registered.
Right.
You can own these shares, but the only reason that an accredited investor can receive these unregistered shares is because they have a lot of risks. They aren't registered. And not all the proper disclosures were done. You didn't receive all the information. That's part of the exemption. But at some point, the shares can be registered, or as a certain amount of time elapses, 6 months or a year, you can follow a process where you can sell them. So that's the final piece that I'm digging into. If this lender, which we don't know who it was, received 4.7 million shares that were unregistered, I want to know, and I will follow up with you guys when I get the exact answer, if I ever get it, when can they sell them? Because that's part of my DD, because I'm saying to myself, well, if a lender was willing to take down 4.7 million shares in exchange for debt at an average price of, I don't remember what it was,
And they have to hold
7.30.
on to them to the
Right.
point where they
If
can
it was
actually-
$7.30 or $7.60, I'm saying to myself, if they were willing to take them at $7.60, why wouldn't I buy AMC at $7?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not the only one that's thinking that. Other people have asked me that question. And I think that's a legitimate question to dig into. Like, okay, are we on the right path here?
Yeah, because this isn't like an Antara situation.
Right.
Where
If
they
this
just turn
lender
around
is
and-
anticipating some run up, then we should know the answer to that. That's why I'm digging into this. But if this lender can turn around and sell them tomorrow, that would change my outlook on my thesis.
Mhm.
So I'm working for myself to get the answer to that. I'm working for you guys to get the answer to that. And I don't know the exact answer to that, but I know there's a lot of ways. Like I said, there's already a shelf offering. I think since they were unregistered, they're not covered under the shelf, but I don't know. And there are other ways that you can move unregistered shares through various processes into being able to sell them. So if anyone knows, feel free to comment, send me a DM. I've reached out to several attorneys, and smarter people than me to try and figure this out, because it's part of my DD. And my whole point on being here on YouTube, whether you like what I talk about or not, is to share the things that make me curious and share my thoughts.
It reminds me of when I used to play football in high school. They talk about people who are students of the game. When you're in markets, you have to constantly be a student of the market and all these different things. You're always learning new aspects that help improve your ability to interpret information that you receive and make good decisions.
Typically, when I've looked at other companies, when I see whether it's warrants or shares in some unregistered exchange, typically what I see at some point following that is a registration statement where the company says, we're registering these shares. And I'm like, all right, now they're fixing to dump.
Mm-hmm.
The lender or whoever got these shares, the insiders, they're fixing to dump because they told the issuer, the company, we're going to take down these shares, but you need to follow up and file a registration statement.
Right.
But when you see the 8K, typically the wording will say, we sold these unregistered shares and we have agreed to, within the next 60 days, file a registration statement or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that in this 8K from the 15th. It didn't say, and we agree to file a registration statement. So that's the only reason I'm hesitating on. I don't know the whole story here, but I am very curious.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious about it too, because this is a whole aspect that I didn't even know too particularly well about. So, I mean, any information like that, I'm always open to learning new things about. And that's kind of like why I like following your channel, is you get into some of this nitty gritty stuff that not many people on YouTube get into, regardless of what you think about particular stocks or not.
Yeah, and the most important thing is whatever we learn, for ourselves or as a team, as a community, then it improves our decisions and our analysis of every play that you're going into. If it's a kind of a sketchy play, you don't want to not have the edge, right? You don't want to be, you don't want to not understand the information or the filings, because then you're going to lose.
Yeah. And when we talk about edge, it doesn't have to be, against the whole market in general. It's just that edge against any other transaction, any way that you are getting better compared to yourself is a good thing.
I just view it as every lender and every company is trying to screw us.
Mm-hmm.
So I better understand the filings, because they're not often easily understood by basic English. And it requires even deeper level of SEC regulation understanding.
That's the thing about finance, is like, you've got ways where you can make things easier for you, just play index funds and everything. But when you get into picking stocks, it isn't like, baseball where there's the minor leagues. No, everyone's playing professional. They just don't know it yet. And you're playing against professionals.
Yeah. And the irritating thing is the professionals, they don't want to talk to someone like me, right?
Nope.
They don't
You
want
have to just do it on your own.
You got to be persistent, and you got to not give up. Like if I don't get an answer from the 2 people that I've asked, I'm going to keep asking. If it takes me a month, I'm not going to give up, because I don't like thinking that someone has an edge on me. An institution, could be, and it might be too late. Maybe they dump them on Monday because they knew something I didn't.
And sometimes,
but I'll know for next time.
Yeah. And sometimes you get incredibly lucky. Like when the first live stream I did, when I had Bronco on, who's been in Texas oil and gas, it's going back as far as his dad and his grandparents. And so, sometimes you get lucky and you get those opportunities to talk to people who are in the industry and get some of that inside track stuff, that inside.
I'm trying to cultivate connections that I can rely on to provide me this information. But unfortunately, most of them, they want you to pay them for their time.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Good information don't come cheap.
Yes, that's the problem, right? If you want a good securities lawyer, you're going to pay hundreds of dollars per hour. Like I got to find a benefactor that is just willing out of the goodness of his heart to help educate me and us, all of us. And there's just not that many. And then the few that are out there on Twitter often are just assholes.
Yeah.
Corax. I wish everybody would just be nicer to everybody. Like, we're all trying to make money. There's a lot of people that are being misled.
Yeah.
And I get it. They fight back and they call you a shill and a troll and a paid hedge fund plant. They do it to me too. I do my best to not lash back, but a lot of you guys do. And I get it. I understand why you lash back, because people are mean and they're bullheaded. They don't see that you're trying to help them.
Yeah. Sometimes, and I know I'm bad at this. Focus on the people who are interested in learning, who are interested in improving themselves, and not spend so much time on the people who aren't interested in helping themselves.
Yeah. The second I get some mean comment, I just block them. Like, that's not ever anybody that is going to receive value from my journey of trying to learn and share information. If you're not willing to try and learn, then and you're an asshole about it, it's an easy block, and I'll never worry about it again.
Yeah.
I know some of you guys enjoy fighting. I'm trying to have less drama in my life, more peace, and make money with people that want to learn and make money.
I don't think anyone will get the reference, but I like to joke that, even Corax has a 1 dot of rage.
Has a one
dot of rage. Like the Corax thing comes from a tabletop game I play in, and I doubt anyone will get that inside joke. But if you did, I give you the thumbs up.
Kevin says the Twitter post from Adam Aaron about the apple trees. Best guess if it means anything or just FUD. I don't know, Kevin. I've said for 3 years now, I don't decode tweets. I don't encourage decoding tweets. I think there's a lot of misleading of investors.
You didn't take anything about him dropping his phone and texting Q or whatever it was.
I have never commented on decoding of tweets. And if I ever did, it was a joke. Like, if in 3 years you can find dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of references of me on video saying I don't decode tweets. If you find one tweet where I made a joke that this tweet was bullish, that was me being sarcastic. And you would know that if you listen to me on a regular basis. So I don't decode tweets. I don't think that most of them have any hidden meaning. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to rag on people that do, but I don't make my financial decisions based on decoding tweets. That's just me.
Yeah. Did you see anyone that had any questions about our original topic? The chat died on my end, so I don't want to reload the page and possibly get kicked out. I didn't know if there was Anything that I was missing or that needed to be covered that we hadn't gotten to yet, or if there's anything you had?
Yeah, if you guys have any other lawsuit questions, let's go ahead and get those in before we wrap this up. Kevin, you are welcome. I read all the decodings on Twitter. I find them entertaining.
Yeah.
In every community decodes tweets, right? I read them all. I don't do it, and I won't comment on it, and I don't make any decisions regarding my money based on tweets. Yeah. Not a single one.
The decoding of bankruptcy dockets has been an interesting hobby read of mine.
Now we've entered a whole new realm of decoding children's books, which I also find entertaining. I don't rag on these guys. I listen to a lot of their live streams, and I chat with them from time to time because just the whole psychology of everything is fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. But I certainly, and they're doing no harm at this point, right? BBBYQ is done. There's no harm in chatting about it, having live streams. They can, I say, let them.
They can all get together in Florida.
Yeah, let them do what they want. I don't understand the whole hate against that community. I made my videos from August of last year until it went bankrupt, saying stay away, and because I could see it was headed into bankruptcy, and they had some toxic dilution coming. And I did hold Bed Bath & Beyond until the day that Ryan Cohen sold. And then after that, it was pretty predictable in my eyes that it was going to go to zero. But at this point, yeah. But I was never a hater on that community. And especially now that it's done, hey, let them have their fun. Let them have their community.
Yeah, that's why I haven't done a whole bunch of videos on it. There's been some things that I've addressed.
I don't understand why people are beating on them every single day. Like,
well, I don't have to worry about that anymore because I got put on their suppressive persons list, and all of them have blocked me. So but more the better. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Whatever community it is, whether they like me or not, I'm hoping that, maybe there's a few that want to learn how to read financial statements, want to learn how to see what I see so early, and not lose money or scale your risk. If you want to participate in a play, hey, I say, there's no problem trying to hit home runs. Just don't wager the whole farm on it.
Especially on bankruptcy companies. That seems to be the newest fad. Like, if it's in bankruptcy, there's usually a reason there. And especially with this one I just now started following, the near intelligence NIR, like there was like a week after the bankruptcy had already been filed, there was this like weird after hours pump where they pumped it up 80% in after hours. And of course, as soon as the market opened back up, it immediately died. But I got a video out and I'm like, look, guys, they already told you that the unsecured creditors are impaired. You're not getting anything.
It will be, though. I mean, if they pull a rabbit out of a hat, Corax, mm-hmm. and they get something, which I don't think they will. And I've told them that, and they're cool with me, I think. They don't like me, but at least they allow me to speak. Yeah. Because, I don't hate them, and I'm not ragging on them. And I wish them success. But if they pull a rabbit out of the hat and have success, I will pop a bottle of champagne live on camera for them and celebrate, because I love to see retail win, but I just don't see it in any of the filings or the court documents.
There's some claims that they have based on the fraud that was going on with that company that leaves a question mark, but it's a very, 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 very slim chance.
I follow it still because, I like a long shot winner. Maybe there's something I missed.
Everyone roots for an underdog.
Yeah. Matt says, can AMC put a stop to these constant lawsuits from Allen friends, or can they do it indefinitely? I don't know, Corax. I don't know the answer to that. Do you have any thoughts?
If the
AMC is not actually a named defendant, right?
No, they are what's called a nominal defendant. What happens when you're a nominal defendant is that if you have some nexus, as it were, to the case, but you're not actually have got claims against you, but they need you, say, for like the Project Popcorn stuff, if they want discovery on that, AMC would be a pertinent entity. So in order to be able to get discovery against them, they would have to name them in the lawsuit. And that's why them and I believe the DTCC and FINRA are what's called nominal defendants. There are no claims against them, but for the purposes of being able to actionably, proceed with discovery against them, you have to name them in the lawsuit.
If you are subject to frivolous lawsuits, you can go back and make a claim against the plaintiffs for damages and attorney.
You can make a cross claim.
Right.
At the end, you can basically ask for fee shifting and stuff like that.
But the problem is, and you hear these people say this often, I don't have anything, so good luck with that.
Yeah, that's not a defense. Yes, the whole thing of there's a word for it, but I miss that. I can't think of it, but they can still hold those claims of you over you and basically garnish wages and stuff like that. So yeah, sure. Technically there's a limit to what they could get out of you and it wouldn't be worth it. That's why most defendants, even if it's frivolous claims, unless you're really going after them constantly, they just want to be done with it. There's no point in trying to chase after someone like Al. Just get these claims off my docket and move on.
Yeah, but to Matt's question, like once Al and Jordan didn't sue AMC, but if they did and that one was dismissed, what's to stop the next guy from doing one, and then his is dismissed and the next guy?
We found that out with the MMTLP situation where they had a different investor sue FINRA in these 4 different jurisdictions. Tactically, there's not a whole lot stopping them. Like eventually you can get to a point where you could probably go in front of a judge and be like, look, this is clearly an orchestrated attempt to attack us with frivolous claims and you might be able to get something. But there's not, from what I've seen and what knowledge I have, there's not really much you can do. It's really disappointing, but that's kind of how the legal system is structured right now.
Benjamin, hello. Michael, hello. Gus, what's going on? Gus says, do you think anyone with an average of over 100 on, I'm guessing on AMC, will ever break even? Tough to say, Gus. I mean, I'm just laying all the cards out on the table. And we've talked about this on live streams. I think 2024 will be very similar in price range to how 2023 was. Like, I don't expect the domestic box office in 2024 to be substantially higher based on the info I know now, but AMC could change that by loading in a bunch of concerts like the Taylor Swift. But you saw what happened with Beyonce. It was a success, but not to the extent that Taylor was. So they'd have to load in
their own money printing machine.
Yeah, I mean, they'd need to load 10 concerts in to bump up the numbers. So I'm telling folks that I'm talking to that I'm looking at 2025 as our first chance of having a good box office number where AMC could start printing some profits. And then let's just say we go with that supposition for a minute, because my crystal ball only works so well. But let's just suppose that box office recovers to 2019 levels in 2025. Then you need to make some earnings to price analysis. What would the earnings be in 2025? And what price can be derived off of those earnings? That becomes a separate discussion. I think if I had to answer you right now based on my models for 2025, I don't know how I make a normal financial analysis justifying $100 price target.
Yeah, I don't either. And I tend to be along the same lines as you, not just from what you just said, that the 2025 period is probably your best chance to start seeing things turn around. But just looking at the macro factors, the Fed stopped doing hikes. That means usually that when the Fed stops, they don't see inflation and growth expectations. They see the economy becoming stagnant, possibly rolling over. So 2024 especially with the dot plot, the Fed's seeing recession potentially, which is going to harm a lot of companies. So I think that 2025 estimate is a good.
What I do follow on saying though, Corax, and you might not like this. I know all the people that hate me won't like this. We've seen many stocks run up for reasons not related to fundamentals.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I base my analysis on. But like
FOMO, short interest, some news announcement from the company that inspires people to invest and catches shorts off guard. Look, in 3 years of talking with you guys, I have never thrown out one single catalyst that I said this is going to make the stock run. People accuse me of that all the time. Oh, he's been pumping, saying it's going to. No, I never have talked about a price target. I have not once ever talked about a catalyst. The only catalyst I've ever mentioned is something that no one is expecting, the unknown catalyst, something that I don't know about, something that the shorts don't know about, something that lights a stock on fire, whether it's AMC or any stock.
That's hard for anyone to predict.
Yeah, your best catalyst is an unknown catalyst, like the GameStop back in 2021, where people bought it irrespective of financials and fundamentals, and they held the stock. That was something that their models did not account for. So could the price of AMC run up before, to 100 or higher? Anything is possible with the right conditions. I'm just telling you, based on my very logical analysis right now, I don't know of anything that gets us there.
On that point of the unknown catalyst, or things can run up on anything. What's the famous John Maynard Keynes quote? The markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent.
Yeah, I'm very careful when I say that, because I don't want to inject hopium into people. I'm just saying there's always a chance. Like, why do I invest a small amount of my money in some of these plays? Because there's a chance. But I understand the remoteness of that chance, so I scale my position relative to the risk. It's like we were saying, like if you go to the horse track and you bet on the dark horse, the one least likely to win, the payoff might be 1 for 100, but 99 times of going there, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
The one time you win, you get a nice payoff. So I kind of look at it that way. Like, I'm not going to take my entire paycheck and bet on the dark horse and expect that I'm going to win every single time.
And I'm definitely not going to make it a huge part of my portfolio allocation heading into a cyclical economic decline.
Kevin
Hopefully
says,
that doesn't happen, but
Kevin says, should we buy more shares, lower cost basis? That's a difficult subject to talk about, Kevin, because I don't want to give financial advice to anybody, but in general, I've heard a lot of people say never average down on a losing position. I don't know that I agree with that, but here's what I do agree with. You need to understand the company, the financials in the future to decide if you should average down on your position. You need to understand the normal trading volatility of that chart or that company.
It's really something that you can't give good advice on, because there's a lot of factors that go into that decision. And at the end of the day, it has to be your decision, not me or Tony's.
I'm not going to talk about AMC for a second. I'm going to talk about every other company that I've watched people average down on into bankruptcy. There's literally dozens of them. I have a whole list on my Webull, a folder.
I have several of them. There are videos that I've done. Yeah.
I watched all those retail communities encouraging each other to average down. It's only going to get better. It can't get cheaper. Mullen comes to mind right now of one that's suffering from that.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of concerns of people that are ignoring the financials and the fundamentals and what's going on and averaging down. It's only 12 cents, can't get cheaper. Well, it can, and it probably will.
If it's gone down 90%, it can still go down 90% again.
Yeah. I mean, if they do a 1 for 100 reverse split.
Yeah.
And
that'll be interesting Monday. They're going to revote that tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm going to try and live stream that. I need to get a control number because I don't own any Mullen. But I'm just saying, after watching so many communities use that logic and still go to bankruptcy, I'm very hesitant to say to anybody, just average down. But I do know people, I'll just share stories here. I do know people that have been averaging down, but what are they doing? What are they doing different? How did they #evolve? They are trading their averaged down shares. So if they're buying at 650, they're selling at 11. They know what they have at 100 is already probably a wash, and they're just content to sit on it. But they can recoup it by smarter trading style.
And also, depending on what your position is, not to give, go too far into the financial advice, but depending on where you are, potentially, I don't know if Tony's done this. I know I've done this with some of my positions. If you've got it in bulk, try doing covered calls to.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that next. The averaging down and then changing your trading style still requires you to be investing in a company that has some positive outlook, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're going to try and trade volatility on Mullen, that's a lot worse bet than trading volatility on AMC, because AMC has growing revenues. They're paying off the debt, even though it's small, but they're making steps, right? They're increasing revenue streams. They're fixing the balance sheet. You have some hope that the company, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Mullen, we won't know really what hope we have until we see the next 10Q, but it doesn't look great to me right now. So I don't know that I'd buy Mullen at 12 cents, hoping I could sell at 24, because it's more likely to go from 12 to 2 in my mind.
Especially with their cash burn.
Right. Then 12 to 24. But that's your choice. You got to, these companies, and you got to make that choice. That is speculation. That's not investing. But the other thing, going to what Corax was saying, and I do this on any position that I have over 100 shares of, and I'm certainly doing it on AMC now, although I did not for the last couple of years, is if you're holding a bunch of stock in any company, I'm not going to talk specific to AMC, but if you understand the volatility of the stock that you're holding and you have over 100 shares, whether it's 100 or 1,000, you could educate yourself on the benefits of, for example, selling covered calls, where you generate income for yourself. Or another way to look at it is lower your basis by capturing options premium.
Or if you do have made that educated decision to that you think that you might average down or think that it's a good company, and you don't think that you have a good buy-in point for a new position, sell cash secured puts and let it come down to a price you want and get paid to wait.
We've talked about that, Corax, on a few of the recent live streams, and I've been doing that not only on AMC but other positions as well. Let's just say a Lucid. Now let's say Joby, Joby, the aviation EV company. I think it's trading at let's just say 750 right now. If you said, I'd like to buy Joby, you can insert AMC here. This works for any company. I'd like to buy Joby if it drops under 650. You could just sit there and wait. You got the cash. You could just sit there and wait and hope it comes down to 650, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe it just trades between 7 and 750 for a year. But you're potentially leaving an opportunity to generate income on the table, because you could go educate yourself on how to generate income from selling cash secured puts. And you could sell a put or multiple puts on Joby at a 650 strike and immediately receive income. And if Joby never drops to 650, you get to keep that money. If AMC,
and you can allocate it to other things.
Right. Now, if we move that to AMC, if you sold a cash secured put, you say, I buy AMC if it just dropped to $6. Well, if you got the cash, you could sell a put at $6. Mm-hmm. If it drops to 6 on your expiration date, you're going to buy it. But you said to yourself, I'm willing to buy it at 6. Mm-hmm. If it hits 6, you're going to get to keep the option premium and you're going to own the shares at $6 times 100 times however many contracts you sold. So this is not a options training live stream. You need to go educate yourself. Mm-hmm. Watch some videos on selling cash secured puts or the wheel strategy. And I'm going to be talking about that more in 2024.
And just also remember that when you do sell those, that unless you have the higher level options trading, you will have to lock in that cash to that position.
Yeah, I had a lot of cash. I was 50% in cash for the last month in my account, but a portion of it, a decent portion of it, was held up.
That's a good way to double dip, because if you had that cash sitting in your account, you'd be getting interest at the money market rate, at the federal funds rate, plus the cash secured put money.
Yeah. So I couldn't spend that cash, guys. I couldn't invest with that cash because it was being held as collateral for my puts.
But you got a pretty decent return probably.
Yeah. I mean, I made good money on those puts for 30 days. And all of those plays have wound down as of December 15th. So I'll be looking for more day trading into next week now that I'm not constrained by, my cash being locked up. It looks like you have it in your account still, but when you go to trade it, they're going to derate your available funds for trading by whatever collateral you have on the hook. Because you said you were willing to buy XY stock at this price. They're going to lock up that cash where you can't trade it.
Yep. But anyway, any other losses?
So yeah, there's a couple ways that we talked about. What do you do if you're waiting for 100? Do you average down? Maybe, depends on the company. You could look into selling covered calls. You could look into selling cash secured puts. All of those, I view them, and I'm going to publish in my Discord tonight or tomorrow a spreadsheet of how to track the reduction in your basis. If you're stuck with a high basis in a play, selling options, how do those reduce your basis? So if you need to knock it from 100 to 90, 90 to 80, month by month, you can knock down that basis without averaging down, without even buying shares.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways out of the hole. It just requires you to be open-minded, not listen to people that tell you trading options is hurting your play.
Be nimble, be diversified.
Be willing to evolve your thinking.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that everybody has done is put themselves in a silo of only listening to one person. And the only thing we can do is buy and hold and just keep buying. And I'm tired of seeing people lose all their money in dozens and dozens and dozens of tickers by only listening to that. So a long time ago, I started using the hashtag evolve, and I was told I need to be kicked off the reservation. You should not listen to this person. He's telling you to learn.
That's always terrible. Like, and I'm not going to say that it's just an AMC thing or just a this thing, but like a lot of these like retail groups, they've turned into cults. If you get too far astray of whatever opinion that the certain group of people have, then you need to be excised from the community.
Yeah, they're doing it to me on a daily basis because
they do to a lot.
I try and encourage people to understand the financials or evolve your trading style, evolve your way you're looking at a play, because no one wants to see you guys ride every play to zero. I certainly don't. Well, some people do. Some people do, but I certainly don't.
And it's why I try to have different people on, like the stream that I did last time with Platinum Sparkles. She is a big GME person. I probably disagree on some of the analysis of that, but we are able to sit down and talk about things because we're adults and we have things that would help people understand things. And so that's what people, I think, need to do more of, have these open discussions with people they disagree with. And I know I can be kind of a menace in tweets, but you get into conversations like this with me and you want to be, I generally am pretty open to talking to people.
Yeah, I have you on because I think you actually do care, even though you come across very brash on Twitter or even on other, videos that you make. I know that's your style. I'm cool with that. And I'm sure you don't agree with everything I've said or done, and nor do a lot of the people you hang out with on a daily basis. But you are a polite person. Mm-hmm. And that's all I ask. I don't ask that anybody agree with anything or everything I say. Just be able to have adult conversations, because talking with different people is how we all evolve, how we all grow, how we get better.
And with a lot of those videos, I try to reel it in, but some of them are definitely, even though they're cutting, they're mostly for entertainment value. I know. More often than not, I'm not shooting on someone.
I know a lot of it is tongue in cheek. I mean, you're going for the entertainment value. Michael says, which companies look good just buying shares with good fundamentals? Is there more to the question, Michael? Because in general, just at the face of your question, almost any blue chip stock that has increasing revenues and increasing profits meets the minimum hurdle. But then once you've filtered out and found those, then you need to look for proper valuations. Mm-hmm. Something could have fantastic growing revenues and profits, but be overvalued. Right. So it's not a simple question to answer. I'm going to continue to put out value stock videos, even though I get a lot of shit on those. I've been raking it in.
I really like those. Those are
I've been raking it in, buying blue chip companies that are beaten down. People hate them. Disney, CVS, Target. I didn't buy Budweiser, but if you had bought Bud at the bottom, it's up fantastic amount. Just look for solid companies that are experiencing some momentary trouble, then do the work to figure out if you think they can recover from that, and start establishing some points where you'd be willing to buy it.
Yeah. And use the tools that your broker gives you. A lot of the plays that I found that have been real winners on those value stock plays, I've looked for companies that they tend to be in the medium to small cap range. They have good fundamentals. It's just nobody knows about them. And you could be holding those for a year until everyone else gets on the program with you. But when you do, it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing more of those type of filters and searches, Corax, into 2024, because that's really where you get your outsized returns. Like, it's easy enough to find a Target or a Disney, which is out of favor at the moment, but has a long history of doing well and saying, okay, I think that in 2 years they'll fix this. But even better returns can be had finding the undiscovered gems like you're talking about. So we can
sit down and talk about negative enterprise value and
you can like that. That's how Roaring Kitty found GameStop, right?
Yeah.
The book value was higher than the market cap, the price of the shares. He saw that they had more assets
than what the market was
what the market was valuing the entire company for. And he said, even if it's a horrible company, this doesn't make sense to me. The short interest is 100%. And I think they're going to have some new consoles, which will make this an undiscovered gem. And he was right. The price skyrocketed. I still think, if you go back to his original DD, GameStop is overvalued, and it's not anywhere close to the situation he was looking at in 2021. So I have a lower price target on GameStop than the current price.
Yeah. And when I talk about, this next year, possibly a cyclical economic decline, you may see a lot of these stocks that are solid companies still, but the price is just going to get beat up as everyone runs for the exits. And so doing this kind of research like Tony and I are talking about in preparation for that, or in the middle of this upcoming year, could be really great. Get in on these companies when everyone's running out.
Yep. That's why I'm trying to keep a good size of my accounts in cash, because I'm worried about that run for the exits, and I'm spending all my free time just looking, all right, if it crashes, what am I going to buy?
Yeah, that's why I've been keeping mine in the 30-year treasuries, because even if the Fed drops rates, and it's like cash, I can sell those 30-year treasuries, but I'm locking in that 4%.
Yeah, I should probably do that too. I'm being lazy, Corax.
I'm just throwing out ideas here so that people have divergence of possibilities. But yeah,
George said, did AMC do a private offering? We talked about that shortly ago, George. They did sell they traded 4.7 million shares. There was an 8K on the 15th for about 36 million in debt. And if you read the 8K, this was a exempt exchange of unregistered shares. So perfectly legal. You can exchange unregistered shares if you have an exemption, and trading debt. If you're a accredited investor, which a lender would be, you can trade debt for unregistered shares. That is a valid and legal exemption under SEC regulations. And the only unanswered question I have, George, which I'm trying to get the answer for myself and everyone in my Discord that is asking me, does this mean the lender thinks it's going over $7.60? It's a good question. The question I have is, how long do they have to hold those unregistered shares before they can sell them into the secondary market? Were they covered under the shelf offering? Does AMC need to file a registration statement, or do they need to wait a certain amount of time, 6 months or a year, before they can offload them? There's various ways. I don't know the answer tonight, but I am working on it. But for anybody who is saying that was something illegal, unsavory, yada, 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 they don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Is the latest 8K the reason for the drop down to mid-6? So, Gus, I'll tell you, same thing I've said on every recent live stream for the last year and in the Discord just about every day. AMC needs to fix the balance sheet. They had 2 quarters ago a negative $1 billion working capital deficit. Working capital is your current assets minus your current liabilities. Could also be thought of as your ability to pay your bills in the next 12 months. AMC was sitting at negative $1 billion because since 2021, they have been losing money and burning off that cash that we earned back in 2021. And at some point, the working capital went from great in 2021 to near the end of 2022. It started becoming a problem, which is why they did the whole fucking ape thing. It increases your bankruptcy risk when you can't pay your bills. Is that fair to say, Corax? Corax, you still there? He might have stepped away. Anyways, yes, it increases your bankruptcy risk when you can't pay your bills. So having negative working capital on the balance sheet is a bad thing. Now, through the 2 recent offerings, the 2 recent dilutions, they have trimmed that up from negative $1 billion to somewhere, I think, around negative 200 million, maybe negative 300 million. Much better situation for the company to avoid bankruptcy. Not so great for investors, right? But I have told you guys for a year that I think the company needs to raise about $1 billion minimum. And that's where do I come up with that number? Look at the balance sheet. We're about 700 million into that. So I think, this is just my opinion, I could be wrong, that there will be more dilution. And I think that the price will be under pressure because I'm probably not the only one thinking that. Probably not the only one thinking there's more dilution coming, that the balance sheet is not fixed yet. So I think there's going to be opportunities if you're nimble and non-emotional to trade volatility on AMC stock. That's going to require impeccable timing to time the bottom and sell into any run up, whether it's $2, $4, $6. We recently saw it run from 7 to 11 and change. Like, I traded that.
Yeah, and the company also thought that was a good idea to unload too. So.
Yeah, and the next run up you get, I think that's when you'll get your next dilution. So that's why I traded out. I was out at $11.20, $11.20. I was completely out, and I talk about this here on the live streams. I talk about it in the Discord. I said I'm getting out, and I'll get back in when it drops. And where are we now? We're right back there, and I'm buying again. In fact, I just increased my position 150% on Friday. Does that mean you should buy? Fuck no. I'm just telling you.
You got to do what's best for
I'm
you.
just telling you what I'm doing. This is not instructions. I clearly understand the risk. I'm worried about the risk. I'm worried that tomorrow there's going to be another dilution announcement. But I don't think there will be tomorrow. I don't think there will be until the next run up. So I
doubt there would be one till at least the next earnings call, because then they might have some news.
Yeah, I think that there'll be, over the period of coming weeks and months, some slow progression up, as I've talked about, now that the dilution's done. And my main concern is bad news over domestic box office. Like, that's my overhanging concern right now. We're at 1.4 billion on domestic box office. That is pathetic for Q4. So that is also going to provide some headwinds against the price moving up. People that are non-emotional are going to be looking at Q4 saying, this is not going to be that great on earnings.
And traditionally Q4 is not that great.
Traditionally Q4 is pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, because of all the holidays. But we lost Dune and some of the other movies we were hoping for just haven't.
They're making that into like a trilogy series or something like that, right?
Yeah, it got pushed to next year because of the actor strike. So just temper your expectations. That's how I do it. Like, I try and go in it logical and unemotional. And if I'm surprised, great. But if I go in it with both eyes open, no rose-colored glasses, then I can make good choices. And if I choose to invest, then I will scale my risk. I will scale my investment to the risk that I perceive. And I perceive the risk as still pretty high of additional dilution and a bad Q4. Michael says Dish trading under $5, which book value is $34.21. Is that? I haven't looked at the book value on Dish. If you're looking for tools, stockanalysis.com is a good tool where you can sort and look for different companies, or you can look at things like their balance sheet. It'll tell you right at the bottom what the book value per share is.
Look here, summary. Usually I can find it here on Fidelity if I can find it. Hopefully,
Gus, that was helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of those things that I'm talking about, the ending the dilution, the ATM offering, I expected that to provide some bullish momentum. Obviously, the follow-up 8K that they were trading debt for shares was not great news for investors, even though it was only 4.7 million shares. But now as I saw them do that, I'm like, well, they told us they want to fix the balance sheet. How many more of those unregistered share deals are going to come out in the coming weeks or months? I don't know the answer to that. But now we see that they're willing to do it, and they did do it. Something to think about.
Price to book for Dish is 0.14.
If you go down to the balance sheet at the bottom, it should have book value per share.
30 book value as of June 30th, 34.43.
Yeah, so Michael's right. Michael, I'll just tell you, I have traded some Dish for a small gain a week or two ago. I'm not in it at the moment, but I'm watching it. It definitely
I've heard people say it off and on. I just haven't had.
I think there's a merger or acquisition going on. There's also very high short interest. It is a potential tinderbox.
Yeah, short interest 21.61%.
It is a potential play, and I think that if you again scale your risk, it's one I've been dabbling in, but not with a lot of money. I'm not going to make a video saying this is the next GameStop. But it could be. I just tired of people complaining if I provide. There was someone, Corax, the other day that said because I've provided coverage on Bed Bath & Beyond that I've been pumping it, which clearly he's never watched a single video in the last.
Puts me under that label too.
The last 18 months, if I made any video on Bed Bath & Beyond, it was stay the fuck away. And the same thing, same guy said I was pumping Highcroft, which if you've watched any of my Highcroft videos, say the opposite. Wait, be patient, not the time to buy. It's just amazing to me the fucking lies and things that people will say about you and clearly don't watch your content to try and throw you under the bus and make themselves look better. This very narcissistic megalomaniac type behavior that exists out there.
So I found an article on that thing you were just talking about that, yeah, on December 7th, the FCC approved the Dish merger with EchoStar. On the conclusion of the merger, Dish shareholders will own 69% of the new entity.
Yeah, I've been looking into Dish. If it ever gets to the point where it starts taking off, and I think we got them on the ropes, I'll start providing daily coverage of it if I have to. And I will gladly do that. Right now, I don't really want to make a video on it, encouraging people to buy it because we're not quite there yet, right? The shorts are shorting it for a reason. That's what I would leave you with. You need to understand why it's being shorted. We need to get out of this thinking that high short interest means pile all your money into it.
Yeah.
High short interest should make you spend 3x the amount of time figuring out why are they shorting it.
Yes.
And not just take those reports and say, this is FUD. Take those reports and see if there is any logical sense in the short reports or what an analyst is saying. And then you can make a more informed choice about how to scale into a play. I'm not saying avoid it. I'm not saying the shorts are right. I'm just saying be educated when you're deciding how many dollars to allocate to it.
I'll definitely have to put that on my watch list, though. I've got an Excel spreadsheet full of all the things that I look at because I'm anal retentive like that and need to have it.
I'll throw out one tinfoil play for you guys, and bear in mind, I'm gonna preface this by saying there is 0 DD under which I can recommend this play to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I called it out back in September as a low float Chinese stock moving for no reason. And I looked into the company. There's no DD I can give you that says that this is going to moon or that the company is healthy. But the ticker is LICN. And it jumped from 60 cents to like $1.50, which is when I called it out in my Discord. And it's now trading at $1.90. It's still moving up. Still moving up. I don't know why. But I've been looking for the next Chinese stock that is going to have these. There was one last week. Who knows the ticker of the one last week that ran up like 15x in 3 days? These Chinese pump and dumps that run up for no damn reason.
That's why I stay away from the Chinese stocks. I had one
well,
that
I mean, you don't want to stay away from them, Corax. You want to be in them before they have this.
Yeah, I don't trust. But see, when I say don't be in them, that's a me thing. I don't trust myself to time those sorts of market movements.
The part two of what I was going to say is the one that ran up last week. Where you have to be smart is once it's running, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Don't think they're going to become. I mean, you can think that. That's fine, but I'm not going to play Lycan thinking it's going to run to $1,000 like Meagle or any of these other plays. If it runs up to anything, then I'm going to be scaling out of my position. So yeah, that's a complete tinfoil play. And if it starts tanking, then I'll just completely exit. Like I have no conviction in the play. But I do have a screen that I have set up for Chinese stocks that have some unusual momentum. And one day, Corax, I'm going to get lucky on one of these and catch it before the 15 or 100x.
The only one that I've been watching that's like on my value stock list is AMTD. It's gotten the shite kicked out of it, but like it's a financial sector stock. So that's the reason why, because currently things in the financial industry in China aren't that great. But like, see, this is the tricky thing is like, are the financials that it reports the right financials? Because, you know, some of those Chinese companies are, and so I like looked at it. I've tipped my toe in a couple times, but it's just one of those things that's like the Chinese market. I
don't trust any of them. Like,
yeah,
it's throwaway money.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, if you can make a few hundred or a few thousand bucks into 5 or 10x, that's just a bonus. Yeah. But you got to be, whatever you're spending on them, you got to be willing that it could go down 90% in a day for no reason. So that's how I look at them. All right. We've probably chewed through everything we need to. It's almost 11 o'clock here. I would like to do some day trading next week, so I don't want to be up too late tonight.
That's kind of what I was thinking about Monday, because I'm starting to find things that I want to nibble at and then see test out some things. I've been hiding behind my wall of bonds, and now it's time to wake up from my slumber and start seeing if there's things I want to nibble at. It's
definitely been a fascinating last 2 weeks in the market, and I have no firm idea exactly what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But as we wrap up the calendar year, and big institutions are positioning their portfolio for the end of year.
You're going to see a lot of volatility.
Yeah, there's going to be volatility. So if that's your thing, and that is kind of my thing, I like playing that. Good luck to you over the next 2 weeks, and we'll have some more live streams, maybe in the daytime, maybe in the evenings, and some other upcoming videos. So feel free to drop your comments or questions in any video, including this one. I try and read them all, as long as they are formulated by an adult who has a genuine question. I'm happy to respond. People that are just trolling or insulting, that's just an automatic block from the channel. You don't ever have to agree with me, guys. Just let's have a conversation. That's all I ask. Corax, you have any closing thoughts?
Not a whole lot. Just, the volatility is a double-edged sword. Make sure to be nimble. Make sure to, if you're going to play that, never play with more than what you're willing to lose, like we've been talking about. And best of luck to you guys. And if I don't have a stream with Tony before the 1st, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Someone asked if I'm going to do a New Year's live stream this year. Not in this video's comments, but I've been getting questions because we did one last year where we had drinks as every time zone went through.
Oh no.
I think we started in, I forget what time zone we started in, but I think we went from New York to Hawaii.
Okay, you narrowed down the drinks to a reasonable amount.
So I will say we haven't firmed up our New Year's plans here in the Denaro household. Scarlett has talked about wanting to go out, but we haven't made any firm plans. So if we are home, I'll do a live stream with you guys. So stay tuned. I just don't know the definitive answer to that just yet.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you. Let me find the outro. Here we go. All right. Love you guys. Have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in, and best luck in your trading this week.
Let's go. Yeah. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a